Fed up of floor robes, driven to distraction and drowning with doom boxes? Tired of living in chaos? Welcome to Decluttering Untangled, how to declutter when you're overwhelmed, ADHD or autistic. I'm going to help you uncover the secrets to decluttering, no matter what hurdles you face. You'll discover how to declutter, de-stress and transform your world. I'm Heather Tingle, reformed hoarder, neurodivergent declutter queen, and your guide through the maze of mess. Let's get untangled. Hello Untanglers, and welcome to another episode of Decluttering Untangled with me, your host, Heather Tingle. Now, in today's episode, I want to go a little bit deeper, a bit more psychological, into the relationship of trauma with decluttering. Now, it sounds like this might be an episode that's quite heavy on the trigger warnings, but I'm hoping to give it a more step-by-step psychological overview to help you understand your brain and then the reasons for wanting to keep the items and the clutter. Because I think it's important to understand the relationship or the connection between trauma and clutter, because when you understand why you think the way you do, you can look at things a little bit more objectively. And I think it also helps you move forward rather than beating yourself up and staying stuck with it. So I think, and I'm going to say now, I'm not a psychologist, psychiatrist. I just know about clutter and I know about neurodivergence and I know how my brain works, which is probably weird compared to most people's brains. But it seems like the way I think is the way you guys think as well. So hopefully this will be helpful without getting too bogged down into it. So I think our past shapes our attachment to things. I think it massively impacts it. And I think if you can recognise the patterns that trauma creates, and I don't mean necessarily big trauma, like awful things happening, but I mean like every day, if you're neurodivergent, can be quite traumatic, full stop. So just general everyday life as well as the big scary things. But that impacts and kind of gives us those negative I want to say shadows of fear, guilt, and also things like a scarcity mindset. We can get quite fearful about running out of something. So you can start working with how your brain works instead of trying to against it all the time. Because let's face it, a lot of things that other people say to do, like, oh, just get a skip and chuck it all in, or if you've not used something for 12 months, then you don't need it. That doesn't work for our brains. And I think we need to address a lot of it. I noticed that for me, it was a really cathartic experience decluttering. I think it took me around a year to declutter. And during that time, something definitely changed in my brain. My brain definitely changed how it thought. My relationship to stuff changed. So I really hope that you will understand why you think the way you do. And it means you might be a bit more self-compassionate and have a bit more patience with yourself with decluttering. And then when you do declutter, you're releasing more than just the stuff. You're releasing the trauma with it. And also, I think you're rewiring your brain as well, if I'm honest. Okay, enough of the chat. Let's get into it. So one of the biggest things that I see with clients is the fear of what if. So what if I need it? What if I can't replace it? And even if you're financially secure now, past experiences of scarcity can leave you clinging onto items out of a fear you're not going to be able to afford them again, or you can't get those specific things again. That just in case mentality is really related to our survival instincts, which is rooted in like hardship or trauma, maybe something when you were growing up or in past experiences as an adult. And I think you've got to learn to start trusting that you will have what you need when you need it. And you can live without it and only get something when you actually need it. And that's a really big lesson to learn. And it's not easy at all. But when you start to understand that this is why I think the way I do, okay, that's like the first step. Now, I'm not saying this is going to change your attitude to stuff overnight, but it might help you explore it a little bit. And over the next week, I would really like you to have a little think about your past traumas and how they might relate to the stuff. I think also one of the things about trauma, I think, and this is definitely for me personally, is that you're probably a very independent person because it's really quite hard to trust other people. Maybe you've been let down, or in the past your needs weren't met, so that you feel you can only rely on yourself, and you don't want to let yourself down if you let go of something that you then need or can't find again, or can't replace it. So, for example, I have clients that hold on to medical items because in the past they've had to fight to get doctors to believe them or take them seriously. And I think that's especially important for the neurodivergent amongst us, that is a real issue a lot of the time. And so now they feel the need to fix themselves if they're ill, rather than having to fight or attempt to get access to what they need to get better. So, unfortunately, this has meant holding on to everything and anything medical related, which has filled rooms, and it's made living hard. And also things like expired medications, which you shouldn't take. So, you need to work around that level of scarcity really carefully, because you've got to feel that you're safe with what you're letting go. So, by letting go of these items, you're not removing your safety blanket. And you've got to do that in a really careful way that helps you feel in control. And also, one of the ways that we do that is almost by thinking more. And a lot of people think, oh, you're overthinking it too much. Actually, you can't overthink this too much. If you work through the worst case scenarios of what if, hopefully your logical brain will then come up with, but if this happens, then I could do that. Or then if I can't get this item, then I could use this instead. So if I didn't have this, what else could I then use? Well, could I borrow it off somebody? Could I get it off this place? Oh, I'll just have a look online, see how quick I could get it if I do need it again. Oh, okay, that's quite easy to do. So those what ifs, definitely spiral those what ifs, go through all the what ifs, and hopefully that will help you come up with a happy medium of stuff versus safety blanket, because I think it's still important to still feel that level of safety. The last thing you want is to get rid of something, feel vulnerable, and then that's when you get regrets, and that's when your decisions become harder because you can't trust yourself to make those decisions. So definitely go through the route of feeling safe with the things that you're letting go of. And also, one of the other biggest things that I see with clients is fear of judgment from yourselves and also from other people too. So that external judgment from other people, maybe being judged for being wasteful, maybe being judged at the charity shop when you drop something off, that is something good enough or not. You might have been judged for frivolous purchases. You might have thought, you know what, I'm going to treat myself. I deserve this because in the past you weren't given what you wanted because it had got a label, or it was too expensive, or you don't need that. So you've had a frivolous purchase, and then you've almost been judged for getting it. So then you can't then let it go because you shouldn't have bought it in the first place. Or it might be that you were too messy in the past, and that's created anxiety around decluttering. Or you've been told you're too sentimental. How many people have been told, oh, you're just too sentimental, you're too emotional about these things? So instead of going through those emotions, what you decide to do then is kind of ignore the thing that will cause you to work through those emotions and not let it go. So you don't have to work through those feelings and be made to feel bad about being upset because a mug that you bought in 1997's got a chip and it's broken and you need to let go of it. For me, it's totally okay to sob about letting something go. Let those feelings out. It's a good thing. You're processing it. And I think a lot of our stuff is unprocessed emotion and unprocessed trauma, if I'm honest. And it definitely was the case with me. I felt so stuck letting things go because I didn't want to feel those feelings. I didn't want to feel bad about myself. But actually, when I was doing it, I ended up not feeling bad about myself. I ended up feeling bad about the situation and being able to be a bit more objective about it, looking back on it and thinking, actually, that wasn't too bad. Like, it's okay to get upset, but I'm not actually that upset. I'm not that devastated anymore. I thought I would be, and actually I wasn't. So it's all about feeling comfortable with those feelings and not judging yourself, because you will probably judge yourself so much harder than anybody else ever will. And there's that internal judgment. So if you struggle with perfectionism or guilt for throwing items away, especially if you value things like sustainability and you were taught to never waste anything, there's that judgment of, I should be keeping this. I should make sure it gets to a proper home. I shouldn't just put it in the bin. And I think you really need to work through that. It's like, actually, is anybody actually going to judge you for doing that? Or is this something that you've just got to do to have a nice home where you can then be on top of it and feel good about it? I know, that for me was a big thing. I think you need to learn those strategies to stop judging yourself harshly. And as you work through the stuff, you start to be a bit kinder to yourself. You start to talk to yourself a little bit more like a friend would. And you start making choices based on what serves you now. And I think that's really important, because I think a lot of the time with trauma, it holds us in the past rather than makes us look forward to the here and now. And I think that works with sentimental items so much more, because I know for me, from being 2 years old, probably everything was sentimental. And also, trauma often amplifies that emotional weight of an item. So we cling on to something that maybe was linked to someone who was no longer with us. And because we've got that fear over losing them all over again, or we've got that fear, or for some of us, we kind of need to feel that we haven't moved on. We don't want to move on because that will mean that we didn't love them enough. And actually, that's not the case. Clinging on to those items or I should say, letting those items go has absolutely no bearing on grief whatsoever. It does not mean that you didn't grieve enough. It doesn't mean that they weren't important enough to keep them. All it means is those items are not what you need in your life right now. Not the person, not the memory, just those items. And I think finding sentimental memories and strategies for looking after the memories without needing to keep every single item releases you from a little bit of the grief and trauma related to that, but not in a way that you want to forget it, not in a way that you want to move on, because I don't think we ever truly move on from grief. I think we just find ways to live with it. So I think balancing those memories and the stuff with the reality of living in the present is something that is so healthy to do and such a positive thing to do, that just because you've gone through something doesn't mean you need to be kept trapped in it with the stuff, if that makes sense. So, that was quite a deep one for you. I hope that wasn't too much. I do want to talk about more, because I've got so many more things that are linked to decluttering and trauma. I hope it hasn't been too traumatic. So we'll do another one. We'll do another episode. But until next time, be kind to yourself. Remember, you are not alone, and keep untangling. Thanks for joining me for today's episode of Decluttering Untangled. If you found anything that I've said today helpful, please do me a favour. Hit that subscribe button or leave me a review. It's like receiving a virtual high five that keeps me going and lets me know that I'm helping real people out there and I'm making a difference. Please remember, you're not alone in this. I'm building a community of fellow untanglers over on Facebook. Just visit the show notes for the link to my free decluttering community. So until next time, remember, you're not alone, you're not lazy, you can untangle your life.